In this video, I'm going to show you how to put together the battery packs for the OpenROV. The first step is to take the 18 gauge wire that was sent to you in the kit and measure out a meter length. Now, as we've done for most of these things, we're cutting off a much longer amount of wire than we actually need, and that's just because it's a heck of a lot easier to just make it long and cut it shorter later. So 1 meter, 100 centimeters. It doesn't have to be precise since this is way long anyway. So that's roughly a meter. And we're going to do that 4 times. So here's 1 meter, and I'll cut 4 of those. So in the old ROV design, we used to use just regular alkaline batteries in series. That means that one battery pack had half the batteries, which then attached to the other end of the other battery pack. It's like they were stacked together in a line. Then we learned that alkaline batteries have a really high internal resistance, which means that they can't source very much current. And wiring the battery packs in series wasn't going to work. Well, really what happened is we realized we needed a different battery chemistry, and we switched to these lithium batteries that have a 3.7 volt nominal voltage. So now, 3 of those adds up to 11.1 volts, and that's enough to power the ROV alone. Also, the batteries happen to be 1.3 times the length of the old alkaline, so 3 fit where 4 used to fit. So what we do now is we run the battery packs in parallel, 11.1 volts from 3 batteries here, and 11.1 volts from 3 batteries here, and they're in parallel, so the positive is attached to the positive and the negative is attached to the negative, and they can supply twice as much current. Anyway, all that goes to say that what we're going to do is wire this up so that both wires from each battery pack are going all the way into the end cap, and we can wire them to be in parallel. But if for some reason later on, for instance, you wanted to use NIME-high regular C-sized batteries, which are a little heavier, you could also rewire it to be in series. So the first step after making these meter-long lengths of 18 gauge wire is to simply puncture a hole in 2 of these vinyl end caps. I'm just using a screwdriver. Be careful if you have your finger behind there, that when it pokes through, you can poke your finger. I like using screwdrivers because you can kind of remove some of the rubber. You don't need to make a very big hole. In fact, it's nice to make a pretty small hole because when we pot this later with epoxy, the epoxy is less likely to run out of it. So here's 1, and here's 2. In the other video, or in the images of building this, Zach was building them, and he built them in a slightly different way. He actually used a razor and cut a little kind of hole, a rectangular hole. I prefer making a small puncture that just barely allows the wire to fit through. So now I'm just going to kind of push 1 through. There's 1. And here comes the other one. It's okay if it's tight. I mean, as long as you can get it through. The tighter it is, the kind of easier over time you'll have holding that glue in, the less mess you'll make. I guess I could have made my hole a little bit bigger, but it seems to be working. There we go. So there's 1. And then I'm just going to do this to the other end cap really quick. So the reason I'm doing it in this order, you also at some point need to solder on these terminals that attach to the battery, or that push against the battery. But I like to do this first because that'd be very hard to do from the other end. If we had already soldered those terminals, then we'd have to put the wires in this way, and it'd be really hard to push through that hole. It's much nicer to be able to push wire through the other end. So let's try this one more time. Okay, so it doesn't need to be as tight as this, but if you do realize that you're having trouble with it, you can just kind of use a screwdriver to expand the hole a little bit. Try not to break any of the insulation. Okay, cool. So that's step 1. The next step is we are going to strip the ends of these wires and solder to them. As always, we're going to tin them, and then we're going to attach it to the various connectors that go onto the battery. So I'm going to start heating my soldering iron up now. In the meantime, I'm going to start stripping the wire. I love auto strippers. I think I've said that every single video that I've used the auto strippers, but seriously, if you own a pair, you'll understand what I mean.
They're $14 on Amazon or something. Totally
Yes.
worth it. NACO auto stripper.
Yeah, highly recommended. We should make like a thing that shows all the tools we use here at OpenROV. People
Actually,
love
I'll
that.
put it on the wiki. I'll put a link to all the cool tools we use.
Oh, that'd be great. Cool. So,
Aside.
a slight aside. That's okay. A lot of times it's kind of awkward as I'm doing this. I don't know what to talk about. Okay, so
You can sing.
I could sing, but you know what? Maybe in the next video.
Okay.
So here's the wire. I've stripped about 1 centimeter back. You can strip a fairly large amount if you want. Yeah, about 1 centimeter. That seems like the right length. And then also, as always, we're going to tin our wires. I'm going to grab my helping hands here. There we go.
Get a peek of the fun R&D
Lab.
desk.
The sign of a well-used lab is it's super messy. At least that's what I always told my mom when I was, arguing that I didn't want to clean my room.
Shows that we have so many ideas strewn about. Specifically strewn.
Yeah, strewn everywhere.
What are you looking for?
Where the heck is my solder? Hold on.
Right here.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I was making sure you're paying attention. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So I'm just gonna tin this like I tin everything. It's just gonna make it so it's much easier to bond to these afterward. So
I can probably hold these for you as well.
yeah, should I tin all of them right now? I guess I could.
Yeah, just this is the right side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Side.
So if you have a cameraman when you're building this, I recommend that you get the cameraman to hold your wire for you. It'll make things a lot easier.
Yep.
Okay,
Here's the next one.
next one. Man, I'm getting better at this than I used to be. Okay.
Cool. And there's one more, I believe, somewhere.
Oh yeah, there it is. I see
It
it.
is hiding. Hiding.
Now, are we tinning? I stripped the right end, right?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of times I'll strip the end that's on the back side of the vinyl, and then it's like, well, that was useless. Cool. Okay, so now we've got our wire leads tinned, making sure that they're on the right side for both of them. The next step is, just like we're tinning wire, we're going to tin our various button heads and spring terminals. Now, one thing I really like doing for these is sanding them down a little bit. That allows the solder to kind of adhere to it better. So I just have, this is 150 grit, but honestly any type of sandpaper, even a file, metal file would work. I'm just kind of roughing up one of the edges here. You know, that's good. You can't even really see it that well probably with the camera, but it does the job. Now, this is a big heat sink or a thermal mass. It's going to take a while to heat, and once you heat it, it's going to be hot. So don't set it just on a rubber mat like this or something.
You'll melt it.
You'll melt it for sure. So, okay. Now I'm just going to make a glob of solder that goes on this. I'm going to clean my iron a little bit here. So basically, just heating the heck. It's not too bad. You can see it heated up pretty quickly, and I get a nice blob that looks like that. And then I'm going to take one of my wires, and this is the magic touch. I'm just going to set it down and then kind of just heat this whole mass. It may take a few seconds here.
There it is. You can see it suck right up.
Nice. And now let that off. Kind of blowing on it. It takes, remember, it'll take a little while longer than usual to harden up, so you have to kind of hold the wire there for several seconds before the solder cools down.
That should be good.
So there's one. So I just did one of the screw terminals. For each of these, you want to do one, not screw terminal. I did one spring, and the other one's going to be button head. So the spring later on is going to get pulled down to the bottom. Let's see here. I feel like a puppeteer pulling all these strings. So the spring is going to be on the bottom. It's going to be put up against the bottom of that. And the button terminal is going to be up on the top, like that. So each one gets one button terminal and one spring terminal. So same thing here. I'm just going to sand away. And then take my soldering iron, a little bit of solder, like this, like that. If I had $1 for every time I put 2 button terminals on one battery pack and 2 spring terminals on the other by accident, I probably have like $4, I don't know, maybe $5. Okay, so now this is the same one that had the spring on one side. It's going to have the button terminal on the other, Again, I'm just heating up that glob. First heating up the glob, because then it'll give me a nice thermal path to heat this. Make sure it's nice and pushed in there pretty well. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blow on it a little bit. I'm kind of addicted. All right, here we go. Remember, this will still be hot. It still feels very hot to the touch. So there's that. The next step, which we'll do in the next video, is I'm going to take these little acrylic parts that kind of hold these flush, and I'm going to glue those onto these terminals. So it's going to be a little circular piece of acrylic glued onto each of these. So that'll happen in the next video.